Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Weekly Reads. I've had a glorious reading week. But first, um, so on Wednesday, I went with my mom to her physical, and everything went well. The clinic, I was afraid was going to be a crowded mess, but it's basically the parking lot is now effectively a waiting room for those who come in cars, and then obviously if you come by some other transportation, you can use the waiting room. But it was like very few people there, and what usually takes like an hour or so to actually see the doctor was pretty quick. So yeah, and we took Waco Transit, and it was a pretty good trip. Uh, we got there early, um, and then the return trip actually came early, so that was pretty good. As far as painting goes, I still haven't gotten around to it yet, which I really should. Um, so, yeah, I still need to paint that purple flower before I forget about it. Um, I really should see if I can actually take pictures while I'm on the bus and not having the pictures turn out terribly. But anyway, let's get to the books. So the first book I started this past reading week is, or was, The Secret History of Wonder Woman by Joe Lepore. This is a group biography of William Moulton Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, and his wives, who played a not insignificant role in inspiring Wonder Woman. Um, so, William Philip Marston is an interesting character. He's a bit of a prodigy who, at least through undergraduate school, up through his bachelor's degree, he was highly successful in everything he did. And then once he got his PhD, he became something of a fraud. He so he helped to create one of the tests that are used for the polygraph test, although he did not actually create the polygraph test. It's a different sort of lie detector that he helped invent. And he did a whole lot of other things that were quite shady, and he drifted along for decades before he created Wonder Woman. And his personal life is incredibly interesting. He married basically his high school sweetheart, Elizabeth Holloway, and then also became involved with Olive Byrne, who was the niece of Margaret Sanger, and basically had a long-term relationship with her in the same house. So basically, how it worked was, and also with another woman who would sometimes live with them, would be Holloway wanted to work. And so Byrne basically sort of did the rearing of the children, even though Marston himself was usually out of work for large stretches of time. But anyway, so this is just a brilliant book. I loved this book. I basically gobbled it up in 2 days. It's just fantastic. And it left me wanting more, which I think is the best thing with history is this, you're wanting more. And I definitely want more like Wonder Woman, particularly Wonder Woman as a feminist icon, and how the various writers, Marston himself, as well as his successors, sort of engaged with feminism, or not, as the case may be, since after Marston, Wonder Woman had some dark decades, some very dark decades. And also sort of a good big history of feminism, which also does play a heavy role in this book. The sort of feminism from the suffragist period and a little bit into the interwar years, even though obviously there was a decline in the post-war period before the second wave feminism in the 60s. And also really a kind of secret history of Wonder Woman, as well as a queer history of the United States, has got me wanting a history of late 19th and early 20th century censorship. So anyway, so this is a fantastic book. Just fantastic. I love it. Another book I enjoyed was the second book I finished this week. Culture in the Third Reich by Moritz Follmer. So this book looks at the development of culture in the Third Reich from basically the Nazi election to the Reichstag. I would say it's the Reichstag. And Hitler's assumption of the chancellorship, and I mean of the early period before the Nazi takeover, and then sort of the high point of Nazi control, and then during the war, the turning of the tide, and then eventually the downfall, and how Nazi culture largely started off in a sort of alliance with bourgeois culture, and also a strong antipathy towards modernism, the avant-garde, and anything involving Weimar. And then sort of a gradual sort of violence and sort of the propaganda and all of that. So this book is incredibly fascinating. And yeah, I loved it. Although also horrifying too, because it shows how the Nazis used culture and used their control of culture to stifle dissent and to foster support. Very fascinating book. So the third book I've read this week and I'm still currently working on is Alexander the Great, His Life and Mysterious Death by Anthony Everitt. I'm most of the way through. I still have a little bit of reading to do tonight. And then I'll have about 90-ish pages. No, yeah, I'll have about 90 pages exactly to read tomorrow before I finish. And so far, I'm loving this book too. Obviously, I'm almost finished, so yes, I'm loving it. So, like all Alexander the Great biographies, I mean, there's limited sources, and Everitt's usage of those sources is highly interesting. I particularly like his expansions on the Macedonians, Macedonian culture and politics, particularly during Philip's reign. Also, his Everitt's touching on Greek and Macedonian sexuality, although there's some issues, I think, around Alexander's sexuality itself. If you accept the notion that Alexander was probably either had asexual or had a very low sex drive, I'm not entirely sure, sort of drawing a causative relationship to the sexual politics of the Macedonian court as causing it is quite right. And also sort of how Everitt handles Alexander's relationship with Barsine, like when they first meet. That's a little bit uncomfortable. But for the most part, I really do enjoy this book. It is fascinating, enthralling. It takes Alexander, or his story, as sort of a bit more thrillerish, I think, than maybe a traditional academic biography. But this is definitely brilliant, and I'm loving it. And look forward to talking a bit more about it next week. So, I'm going to finish Alexander the Great tomorrow. So, and I probably should have a good chunk of time left over tomorrow after I finish because I'm flying through this book. And one thing about all three of these books is that I am flying through them. That I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to read on Saturday after I finish Alexander. I might do a short story. I might read the issue of National Geographic that I intended to read as sort of while I'm waiting at my mom's various appointments, which, given that they have been quite speedy lately, I actually have barely even scratched. So I might go and finish that or read it with the time I have left on Saturday. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do, is either short story or National Geographic. And then on Sunday, I'm going to start on the Napoleonic Wars by Alexander Mikaberidze. This is a huge magisterial history of the Napoleonic Wars from a global perspective, and I am excited to get to it. I'm thinking it should take me probably a full week to read. So I'm thinking I should finish it, if I start it Sunday, I'm thinking I should finish it either Saturday or Sunday. I'm not entirely sure. And it might take me a little bit longer, depending. So depending when I finish it, what I exactly read afterwards. If I don't, I'm thinking there's one book I'm going to read if I have enough time to finish off October with. And then I will do, once I know how the rest of October's reading is going to go, I have 2 books, 3 counting the Napoleonic Wars, still bookmarked on my TBR. But once I know exactly how the rest of this month is going to go reading-wise, I'm going to, I'll do my nonfiction November TBR, including probably there will be one book held over that I still have bookmarked, and then what I'll add to that. And then that'll be what I read in November. And then December reading I'll touch on sometime in November, because hopefully I might be in the mood for fiction by that point. So anyway, I think that's all I have for today. I could ramble on, I think, about whether or not I want to get some art supplies in December. I've pretty much already pre-ordered out for November, but anyway, I think I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to go ahead and shut it off now. So thank you, BookTube. I may or may not have a video up on Monday. I would like to have videos up on Monday, but so very rarely have anything I want to talk about on Mondays, or that I don't think is poop. Um, so definitely tags on Tuesday, writing update on Wednesday, maybe some more tags on Thursday if any ones come in, and then again weekly reads next Friday, where I'll talk about finishing final thoughts on Alexander, and also how far I've gotten on Napoleonic Wars. So until then, BookTube, thank you, have a great weekend, and please stay safe.